Imagine paying someone hundreds of dollars to hide in a bush and take your picture just so you can go on a talk show the next day and cry about how much you hate being followed.
It sounds like absolute madness.
Right.
Yeah.
It does. But in the world of extreme fame, it's actually a survival tactic. Okay, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive is taking us straight through the looking glass.
Yeah, we have this massive, completely anonymous stack of reports and, behavioral observations sitting on the table today.
Yeah, and they just completely strip away the glamorous veneer of public life. We aren't here to just read a list of gossip, though.
No, not at all.
Our mission today is to really explore the profound psychological and physical lengths that public figures go to just to maintain control over their image.
Right, their image, their relationships, and, their legacies.
Exactly. And more importantly, we're going to look at what happens when that illusion of control completely shatters.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are really looking at in these materials isn't just a collection of sensational claims.
We are looking at a clinical, almost anthropological study of human beings operating under crushing atmospheric pressure.
Wow, yeah. Crushing is a good word for it.
Because when your entire existence, your net worth, and your perceived value to society are tied directly to public perception, the instinct to control that perception becomes a biological imperative.
You treat your image the way a normal person treats their physical safety.
Exactly. And as we'll see as we go through this data, the methods used to maintain that control often end up causing the very destruction these figures are desperately trying to avoid.
That biological imperative is a perfect place to start, actually. Because looking through this stack, the most immediate frontier for control is the physical body.
Right.
Like the most basic thing you can attempt to manipulate is how you look for the camera. There is a fascinating sequence of claims in these reports regarding Zac Efron.
Oh, yeah. That section was really revealing. For years, he was held up as the absolute blueprint for the perfect male physique. But the documents detail a period where he allegedly had the left side of his face paralyzed for about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The claim is that a Botox injection went wrong and hit a facial nerve.
Which is a stark physical manifestation of that immense pressure to remain flawless. But what is truly revealing here is the contrast between the reality of these alleged cosmetic procedures and the elaborate public defense mechanisms deployed to cover them up.
Right, like the stories they invent.
Exactly. Instead of admitting to a very common industry procedure, the narrative pivots to extreme hypermasculinity.
Yes.
The public was told his changed appearance was due to a severe injury from an extreme yachting accident.
Or the narrative shifts to highlight his sudden move to Australia, where he was allegedly living off the grid and building hemp huts.
Building hemp huts.
It's the ultimate diversion tactic.
Yep.
You deflect from the perceived vanity of a cosmetic procedure by leaning into this rugged, untouchable mountain man persona.
Yeah, it completely changes the conversation.
But there is a detail buried in here that takes this from a simple PR spin into something much more chaotic.
Right, the security aspect.
Yeah. The timeline of his alleged need to escape, this sudden move to Australia, is linked in these notes to claims that his life might have actually been in danger. The documents specifically point to a recurring hidden connection with a Saudi film producer named Mohammed El-Turki.
It just highlights how the physical facade is often just the outermost layer of a much deeper reality.
Yeah.
The aesthetic control is a smokescreen for existential instability. And, this desperation for physical control doesn't just affect the adults who consciously chose this life.
No, it definitely doesn't.
The behavioral patterns inevitably trickle down to the next generation, often with much less supervision.
Which brings us to the deeply alarming observations regarding 13-year-old Northwest.
Yeah, this part was tough to read.
The reports detail a recent history of extensive body modifications. We're talking about her getting her face pierced, her fingers, her thighs, and now supposedly lobbying for a bridge piercing, which goes directly through the cartilage at the top of the nose.
Right.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second, because I know people listening might be thinking about their own kids, and they're like, is this really that deep?
Sure.
Isn't this just a Gen Z version of teenage rebellion? Like when we used to draw all over our arms with a Sharpie or beg for a belly button ring at the mall, just, with permanent consequences.
It is a totally fair comparison on the surface, but we have to look at the underlying physiology and the environment she is operating in.
Okay, right.
A 13-year-old's anatomy is fundamentally not mature enough for what is being described here. The notes detail how these specific piercings are physically rejecting.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the child's body is pushing the metal out, leaving permanent raised scars on her hands and legs. Because a prepubescent body isn't meant to handle that kind of localized trauma. Nor do they possess the executive function to properly care for complex surgical wounds.
So it's literal physical scarring from growing up under a microscope. The body is rebelling against the modification.
Precisely. It serves as a visceral metaphor for the emotional damage of her environment.
Yeah.
The reports analyze the family dynamic, noting that Kim Kardashian has essentially dropped the parental reins, treating her 13-year-old daughter like an autonomous adult who is somehow mature enough to make permanent bodily decisions.
It's wild. But perhaps the most profound irony highlighted in this entire section is the role of Kanye West's current wife, Bianca Censori.
Oh, absolutely.
Who the media usually portrays as highly erratic and chaotic.
Yet the clinical observations in these notes suggest she is currently the most stable parental figure in that child's life.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The data indicates that the 13-year-old appears the most affectionate, grounded, and safe when she is in Bianca's care.
Oh, wow.
That speaks volumes about the chaotic baseline she is operating from with her actual parents. When the person the media paints as the most unstable is actually your safest harbor, your internal compass for reality is going to be severely skewed.
That perfectly bridges into the next major theme in this stack. Because when modifying the physical body isn't enough to secure that feeling of control, the behavior escalates.
It moves outward.
Exactly. These public figures attempt to manipulate the actual reality around them. They try to orchestrate the observer effect.
Right, controlling not just how they look, but how, when, and where they are perceived.
Yes. And the claims about Hailey Bieber's relationship with the paparazzi are just baffling. It's a massive paradox.
The paparazzi paradox is a textbook example of cognitive dissonance.
On one hand, the notes outline an immense logistical effort to coordinate and pay photographers for spontaneous-looking promotional stunts. There is a specific incident detailed where she is allegedly staging these highly choreographed shots to promote a pair of retro wired Skylark headphones.
Oh, right, the headphones.
Yeah, she will reportedly take the longest possible route around places like Sushi Park, using specific stairwells and outdoor elevators she doesn't even need to use, just to ensure she is caught on camera.
Wow.
She knows their names, she has them on speed dial.
And yet her public posture is the exact opposite.
Right.
She goes on record claiming she tries to avoid them at all costs. She describes the spirit of the paparazzi as very dark.
Yes.
She even shared an incredibly vivid, almost violent hypothetical urge where she imagines getting out of her car with a baseball bat to literally smash and destroy their vehicles.
It's fascinating because she is actively feeding the very beast she claims is terrorizing her. Like she's just paying for the trauma.
She is attempting to control both the supply of her image and the narrative of her own victimhood.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's a way of having total omnipotence. But this need to manipulate reality and control the observer doesn't stop at the edge of the red carpet.
No.
It extends deep into their private relationships, turning bedrooms into battlegrounds.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to look at the historical claims in this stack surrounding Ryan Reynolds and Scarlett Johansson's marriage, which ran from 2008 to 2010.
Yeah, this was eye-opening.
The public assumes A-list breakups are just about scheduling conflicts or growing apart. But the mechanisms described here are deeply psychological and, frankly, incredibly raw.
Very raw.
The material claims their marriage ultimately failed because Reynolds was profoundly threatened by Johansson's greater career success at the time.
Right.
And this insecurity manifested physically as psychological erectile dysfunction.
This is where we need to unpack the actual biology of ego.
Okay, yeah.
When a human being experiences a profound threat to their self-image or their perceived status, the body does not differentiate that from a physical threat.
Right, it's just stress to the body.
Exactly. The sympathetic nervous system kicks into fight or flight mode. It floods the body with cortisol and adrenaline. Physiologically, blood flow is diverted away from the extremities and reproductive organs and sent toward the major muscle groups so you can literally run away or fight for your life.
So, because his brand was built on being this hyper-confident, untouchable, sarcastic leading man, being with a partner who outshone him caused his entire persona to biologically crash.
Yes.
According to the notes, he was unable to perform even with triple or quadruple doses of medication. The pills couldn't override the cortisol.
Because you cannot medicate away a perceived existential threat.
Wow.
So what happens when a person who is used to total control loses control of their own physiological response?
What do?
They attempt to regain dominance by controlling the environment. The notes detail how he would deliberately start fights and take work away from home just to avoid the intimacy he couldn't perform.
Oh, wow.
He replaced the vulnerability of the bedroom with the manufactured conflict of an argument, because in an argument, he could be the aggressor. He could be in control.
That completely recontextualizes why he eventually found comfort with Blake Lively.
Absolutely.
The timeline in the reports suggests they met on the set of Green Lantern while he was still married to Johansson. The analysis argues that he gravitated toward Lively so quickly, specifically because her career wasn't at the same astronomical, threatening level as Johansson's.
She wasn't a threat.
Right. She wasn't an apex predator in his ecosystem, so his nervous system could finally relax.
He fundamentally required a dynamic where he remained the undisputed dominant star to function.
And just to show how wildly granular and messy this stack of notes gets, there's a total side note in this section claiming that Lively had previously become an expert at pegging one of her former boyfriends.
Oh, right.
Specifically naming Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, that detail was quite unexpected.
It's a shocking detail.
Yeah.
But it paints this vivid picture of the incredibly complex, shifting power dynamics happening behind these perfectly polished, carefully curated public smiles. It's all about who holds the power.
It really is. But the critical question is what happens when the pressure cooker finally explodes? You cannot white-knuckle your way through life, maintaining these massive egos, orchestrating paparazzi, and fighting your own biology forever. Eventually, the coping mechanisms become destructive.
Let's talk about Jason Momoa.
Okay.
Publicly, he is marketed as this lovable, giant teddy bear who just loves the ocean. But the behavioral observations in these reports describe a man whose drinking has become wildly untethered.
Yeah, it's very concerning.
We're talking about incidents of spending $700 at a local liquor store with a friend and just chugging beer right there in the aisles.
Oh.
He is openly admitted to drinking beer for breakfast, and there are details of him using Guinness to, quote, pump up his veins before shooting underwater scenes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, relying on the massive spike in pure sugar and carbs for vascularity.
That combination is incredibly taxing on the human heart and liver, especially when layered on top of the extreme dehydration and physical regimens required for superhero physiques.
Yeah, it's brutal.
But from a psychological standpoint, what we were looking at here is a classic case of self-handicapping.
Self-handicapping.
Okay.
Break that down for us.
Self-handicapping is a cognitive strategy where people create massive obstacles for themselves so that if they fail, they have a built-in excuse.
Oh, I see.
If Momoa fails to carry a billion-dollar franchise, or if his performance is panned, his ego is protected because he can subconsciously say, well, I was drinking beer for breakfast.
Right.
It protects the core self-worth by blaming the external substance.
It's like a deep-sea diver coming up to the surface way too fast. They are under so much atmospheric pressure from the studio, the fans, the physical demands, that their psychological bends manifest as erratic sabotage.
That's a great analogy.
And that sabotage isn't just internal, it turns outward, affecting everyone around them.
The claims regarding his behavior on the Aquaman set are particularly dark.
Yeah, they are.
According to notes that were actually subpoenaed from Amber Heard's therapist, Momoa allegedly showed up to the set highly intoxicated. But it wasn't just unprofessionalism, it was targeted. He showed up deliberately dressed identically to Johnny Depp, complete with all the specific signature rings Depp wears.
That is next-level psychological warfare. He wasn't just drunk. He was weaponizing his co-star's real-life trauma.
It is a hostile, calculated attempt to break his co-star's psyche and get her fired during the absolute height of her public, highly traumatic legal battle.
That's awful.
It shows how the intense environment of these massive film sets can turn a person's private demons into weapons used to assert dominance over others.
If you think about power dynamics and control, it doesn't just happen on movie sets. This stack also highlights how systemic that control can be.
Right, the internet culture aspect.
Yeah. There is a section touching on a streamer. He is apparently heavily involved in an internet trend called looks-maxing. For anyone listening who doesn't have a teenage son or hasn't spent time on TikTok recently, looks-maxing is this hyperfixation where young men use extreme, often surgical or physically damaging methods to maximize their facial aesthetics.
Like the bone smashing.
Exactly. Things like bone smashing or aggressive jawline exercises. But the twist in these reports is that Kickler was allegedly confronted in Fort Lauderdale about his funding.
Yeah.
The claim is that he is being secretly bankrolled by Peter Thiel.
This raises an important question about the narratives we consume online and why we should care about them.
Right.
Peter Thiel is a billionaire, yes, but he is also a major Pentagon contractor and a massive figure in the intelligence community.
Which is wild.
The theory presented in these notes is that this entire look-smaxing trend is not just organic internet culture bubbling up from teenage insecurity. It is actually a Pentagon-adjacent social engineering and transhumanism experiment.
Transhumanism being the movement to fundamentally alter the human condition and biology through technology.
Exactly. Why would a military contractor have an interest in social engineering male aesthetics? Because if you can normalize the extreme modification of the human body for aesthetics in young men, you lay the psychological groundwork for normalizing cybernetic or biological enhancements for combat or labor later on.
Oh, wow.
It suggests that this intense grassroots focus on physical perfection is being quietly, systematically funded and steered from the very top of the military-industrial complex.
So even the chaotic, seemingly organic internet trends about taking control of your physical appearance might be totally orchestrated by billionaires.
It's entirely possible.
It is wild to think about. But moving from the systemic pressures and destructive coping mechanisms, the notes eventually lead us to the most sobering part of this entire deep dive.
Yeah. What happens when the spotlight completely consumes a life?
Exactly.
The ultimate endgame. When the illusion of control completely shatters, it doesn't just cost these figures their public image. It costs them their autonomy, their families, and sometimes their lives.
We see the unraveling of autonomy in the claims about Perez Hilton. For decades, he was the absolute king of celebrity gossip. His entire empire was built on controlling and weaponizing the narratives of other people.
Mm-hmm.
But the reports detail a total, terrifying personal breakdown. He was reportedly placed under an involuntary hold under the Baker Act in Florida.
Oh.
For context, that means a medical professional deemed him such an immediate danger to himself or others that he was legally stripped of his ability to consent to care.
He went from dictating reality for millions of people to having zero legal say over his own physical body.
He lost custody of his 3 children, having to sign them over to his own mother.
Gosh, that's sad.
And the precipitating event outlined in the materials seemed to have been an incredibly traumatic incident where he allegedly self-harmed with a serrated knife while broadcasting live on TikTok.
It is the horrific reality of someone whose entire identity was built on craving internet attention, unraveling in front of that very same audience, unable to stop the broadcasts.
Yeah, it is a tragic loss of control.
But if we flip the coin, we see the tragedy of absolute enforcement of control, which can be just as destructive to a family unit.
Okay, tell me about that.
The sociological dynamics detailed in the notes regarding Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman are chilling.
Right. They were married for 11 years, adopted 2 kids, Connor and Bella.
Mm-hmm.
But the claims suggest Cruise's need for control, which is dictated by his status in what the notes specifically classify as a high control group or cult, is so absolute that he refuses to even sit in the same room as his ex-wife.
It's extreme.
He apparently fears his followers would literally revolt if he associated with a suppressive person.
When we look at high control groups anthropologically, isolation is the primary enforcement tool used to maintain hierarchical power.
Right.
The collateral damage of that systemic isolation is always the children. Kidman hasn't been photographed with Connor or Bella since the divorce decades ago.
It's just wild.
The enforcement is so deep that when Bella got married in 2015, neither parent was even invited to the wedding.
Oh.
The extreme, rigid boundary setting required to maintain his specific status completely fractured the family structure. The control survived, but the family did not.
Heartbreaking. But perhaps nothing in this massive stack of data is as grim as the claims surrounding the death of actress Hayden Panettiere.
Yeah, that section serves as a devastating look at the exploitation machine. The fame apparatus doesn't shut down for grief.
The reports claim that less than a week after Hayden died, her estranged mother, Leslie, was already making the rounds doing interviews.
Unbelievable.
The notes describe Leslie as a classic stage mom from hell, someone who pushed Hayden into the industry at an incredibly young age, primarily for the money and the status. And now, mere days after her daughter's passing, she is allegedly in rooms pitching a multi-million-dollar documentary about it.
While simultaneously using those pitches to deflect any parental responsibility, placing the blame for Hayden's downfall entirely on her toxic ex-boyfriend, Brian Hickerson. It treats the deceased not as a lost child, but as a depreciating asset that needs to be monetized one final time before the public loses interest.
It is sickening. It feels like these figures are just commodities, expected to perform and generate revenue until there's literally nothing left of their humanity.
Yeah, they're just products.
Which brings us to the final, incredibly sad claims about Dolly Parton.
Dolly is someone universally beloved. She is the archetype of a public figure who seemingly navigated the treacherous waters of extreme fame with grace and joy.
Yeah, everyone loves Dolly.
But the reality behind the curtain, according to the data in these reports, is incredibly somber.
The notes claim that after her husband of decades, Carl, passed away in the year 2025, Dolly just stopped paying attention to her own health. The anchor was gone. She worked herself to absolute exhaustion. She was supposedly hiding severe, irreversible health issues from the public, while her management team kept her booked and busy right up until the very end. There is a quote transcribed in the notes where she allegedly told someone, "My little butterfly wings are getting tired."
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
She sacrificed her final painful days to maintain the persona. She suppressed her own physical suffering to keep delivering for the audience and to keep the massive corporate machine around her running smoothly.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by talking about Botox, hemp huts, and paying photographers to hide in the bushes at Sushi Park.
Right.
But we've ended up uncovering fractured families, biological shutdown, psychological warfare on movie sets, and beloved icons working themselves into the grave just to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
It seems like the pursuit of this level of fame inevitably demands that you systematically sacrifice your own humanity.
It absolutely does. The system requires a pound of flesh.
Yeah.
And that brings us to what I believe is the most dystopian, thought-provoking detail in this entire stack of notes.
Okay, what is it?
It's specifically regarding Dolly Parton. Before she passed away, she was allegedly in high-level talks with various tech partners to create an artificial AI avatar version of herself.
An eternal Dolly, a hologram that never gets tired.
Precisely. And it leaves us with a deeply unsettling question to mull over as a society.
Yeah.
If our insatiable demand for entertainment, perfection, and constant content requires human beings to endure psychological erectile dysfunction, paralyzing injections, involuntary psychiatric holds, and working through terminal illness, are we simply hurtling toward a future where we replace them all with AI avatars? A future where we can be entertained eternally by the perfect digital image without ever having to feel guilty about the messy, tragic reality of the human suffering required to produce it.
Wow. That is a chilling thought. We all want to look at the beautiful, shiny house, but we don't want to know about the broken people desperately holding up the roof inside. So we might just decide to replace them with holograms instead. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the perfect narratives you see on your feed. Remember, there's always a human cost to the content, and we'll catch you next time.